All right. Thanks, Sam. Give it up for Sam. Nice. Rockin' flannel game. All right, now here's the moment where we bring everybody up who didn't wear flannel and shame them. No, I'm just kidding. No, maybe we'll have to try to, maybe afterwards, after group, maybe we can see if we can get like a picture of all of our flannel folks. If you don't have a flannel on, you want to participate, maybe we can just like turn somebody's flannel that they're using as a jacket, like hold it up like a blanket, we'll use it. Somebody large, so it could probably be mine. I've got lots of room. I've got one extra flannel upstairs we could share the flannel love. So, no, it was funny. We were going to shame people, but that's not very Christ-like, so that was why we decided not to. But then Mark walked in first not wearing flannel. We're like, well, we can make an exception. We can shame him. So, well, we are in our 8th session of our study through Practicing the Way. This is the session titled Life Together, or another way of saying it would be our session on community. So very exciting. I'm glad that we're able to go through this. And first off, I just want to say thank you guys for being here in this series and participating. I know some of you, if this is early or your first time, you're like, I just got here. Thank you anyway. I'm glad you're here. But also, if you've been here, especially for a lot of these consistently, I feel like this as a course has been incredibly helpful, incredibly insightful into all of our lives. And so I'm just thankful that I got to participate in it. I'm thankful that we as a group got to participate in it. So if you missed any of these sessions, they're all posted on our YouTube, the FCF Young Adults YouTube. So if you're interested in watching any of the videos, you can do that. Also, even if you just got here or you got here like last week and you're like, man, I don't have a book, we have extra books. We can get those for you. If you need one, just talk to one of the leaders. We'll get you a book and you can go through. There's also lots of amazing resources on practicingtheway.org, and that kind of gives you all of these things that we've talked about throughout the week, and videos taught by John Mark Comer, which are probably a lot better than the videos of us teaching. But we are, it's honestly, this whole thing I think has just been a great success and a great blessing to our group. So if you missed some of them, I highly encourage you, go back, check them out. Each week was really helpful in its own right individually. So really encourage you to do that. But as we are in our final session, we're going to jump right into it, so we have lots of time to go through with our small groups and kind of talk about what we're going through. So first off, we're talking about life together, and like I said, community and what that means. And so first off, I just want to share, there's an old saying. It goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that saying resonates a lot with us in our life and in our spiritual journey. In the past few weeks, we've been talking about what this journey of becoming like Jesus looks like, and like how to do it well. So what the goal of that is, what are the things that we can do to actually accomplish that, to become like Jesus. And one major thing that we've learned is that spiritual formation is a lifelong process, and it's a very long and slow journey. It's a very long and slow process. This week, we're talking about the fact that we're not supposed to be doing it alone. Just like that saying goes, we're designed to go on this journey, but it's a long journey. And so if we want to go far, if the goal is not speed, but if the goal is endurance, then we are best to go at it with someone, to go at it together. So in the previous weeks, we've gone through a lot, and so I want to do a little bit of a recap here, just talking about what we learned each week, just briefly. In session 1, we went through the 3 driving goals of an apprentice: to be with Jesus, become like him, and do as he did. We talked about the process of following a rabbi and apprenticing under a rabbi. In session 2, we talked about the fact that we are already being formed, and we have been formed by our life and our circumstances and the environment around us, and we are being formed or deformed. In session 3, we talked about all formation in the way of Jesus, meaning formation to push us towards Jesus or make us more like Jesus, to mimic the image of Jesus. All formation in the way of Jesus is counter formation. is looking at the way that the world is trying to form us and saying, I want to be formed differently. I want to try to form myself in the way of Jesus. Session 4, we talked about the practices and how we do what we can do so that Jesus can do what we currently cannot do. Say that 10 times fast. And how he transforms us to live and love like him. Jesus' goal is for us to develop habits, practices, life rhythms so that we can learn to live like he lives and love like he loves, something you'll hear Pastor Randy say often. And in session 5, we went on this journey, the inner journey, to meet God in our pain and suffering. That through pain and suffering, through trial and through tribulation, we meet God there. He meets us where we're at, and he helps us to grow and to process through those things. In session 6, we learned that we need healing from the layers of sin, and that we find that through confession. And then last week in session 7, we learned that a rule of life is a schedule and a set of practices and relational rhythms to organize our lives around a spiritual formation. So we are creating an intentional pattern, an intentional set plan, a rule of life saying, who do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like? And how can I organize my life around those things? And in our last week, we're going to key in on one last idea, and that's you are not meant to go on this journey alone. In fact, you are meant to follow Jesus in community. We actually see Jesus exemplify this in his own life. At the start of Jesus' ministry, we see this in Mark chapter 1, verses 17. As he calls the disciples, he says, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. This is the start of him calling his apprentices to apprentice under him. And what we learn in that is that Jesus did not just have one singular apprentice. He had multiple apprentices. Not just one singular person. He wasn't just looking for one person to impart all of his knowledge to and to put one person around him, but he was looking for multiple apprentices to learn, to grow, and to learn how to be like him. And we see just a few sentences later, Jesus calls 12 apprentices. It says, Jesus went up on the mountainside and called to him those he wanted. And they came to him, and he appointed 12 that they might be with him. This is the starting of him creating the organization of the 12 disciples, calling them out and elevating them to be his closest, innermost circle. Have you ever wondered why 12? Right? Why not like 21, 30, 42, 33, right? Like, all these 7, like there's all these other numbers. Have you ever wondered why 12? I've definitely wondered that. Well, it's really important. I think this is actually an incredibly intentional thing that God is doing. He's pointing back to the 12 tribes of Israel. That in the Genesis, the narrative was that God was choosing a people for himself, and he chose the 12 tribes, and he separated them out, and this was God's family, the Israelites. It was the 12 tribes of Israel, and he's like, these are my people. This is how I am shaping the world through, and the people that I call my own. In the Hebrew, the word is segula, the word he calls his precious possession. So he calls this 12 tribes of Israel his family. So what Jesus is saying as he calls his 12, he's saying, I have a family, but the family I'm building is not based on blood relation, but it's based on the people that are apprenticing under me. Later on in the same chapter, a crowd will try to let Jesus know that his family is nearby, and they're like, hey, your family, your mother and your brother are looking for you. And he'll say, who is my mother and my brother? He says, those who are with me. He looks around on the ground, the people surrounding him, and he said, these are my mothers and my brothers. He said, those who follow Jesus, those who follow God's word are the ones that are my family. He says, those are my sisters and my fathers. He says, my family is whoever does God's will. To become an apprentice of Jesus is to be a part of a new family. the one that transcends all these lines of separation that divide us normally. The lines of race, class, sex, politics, upbringing, all of those things divide us in a normal life and in the world's view of things. But what Jesus is saying is that none of those things matter, because the thing that is going to combine us, that's going to bring us together, is obedience to God. Is seeing God, having desire to pursue God, to be like God, to be made in the image of God, and to say, that's who I want to be formed by. That is what brings us together, and that will span all divides. And this has an incredibly important implication. See, Jesus desires to form not just you into a person of love, but to form us into a community of love. Not just to make you as a singular person someone who knows how to love like Jesus loves, but to actually create a family of people that know how to love like Jesus loves, and to create a community that does it together, and that we are an integral part of that community. So this incredibly important implication is that you can't follow Jesus alone. Not that you shouldn't follow Jesus alone. You can't. Because if Jesus didn't do it alone, you can't do it alone. If Jesus went through his life with people, with community, you're not following Jesus to try to do it alone. If your plan is that, I'm going to go through this myself, I'm an independent, or maybe I'm an introvert and it's terrifying to be with other people, or to let myself be open and vulnerable to other people, you can feel like that, but that's not God's design for you. God's design is that he wants you to do it with people. He wants you to be in this community, to grow together. People say it all the time. They're like, it's just me and Jesus. Like, it's just, hey, everybody else, they can leave me. I don't need everybody else because I got Jesus. And there's actually some truth to that, because there will be seasons of your life that you will go through that you won't have some of the community that we're going to talk about. You won't have the elements of a healthy network that we're going to talk about tonight. And in those seasons and in those moments, God is enough. Jesus is enough. But that still doesn't mean that's the design that he wants you to stay in. Right? Jesus is enough to continue to get you through that season, to continue to uphold you and care for you in the midst of those seasons, but he also is trying to get you out of that season. Right? Jesus doesn't want you to stay in a place where you're like, yeah, all I've got is Jesus and that's all I need. No, that's not what he said to do. He said, go and insert yourself into my family. Go put yourself in my community. That's where I want you. That's where I need you to grow. So take heart. You might be in a season right now where you go like, you're telling me I need community, and we're going to talk about the pieces of that. But you might be saying, I don't feel like I have any of this community. Maybe that's why you're here tonight, because you're trying to establish it. And just take heart that, first off, God is enough. Jesus is enough. He can and will sustain you. But also, he doesn't want you to stay in that season. He wants you to find a community that will help bear life with you, that will help walk with you and guide you. That is his goal and his desire for your life. If we're trying to enter into a process of being formed more into the image of Jesus, it's just a fact that we will not get very far if we're trying to do it alone. Dr. Joseph Hellerman puts it like this. He says, spiritual formation occurs primarily in the context of community. Persons who remain contented with their brothers and sisters in the local church almost invariably grow in self-understanding, and they mature in their ability to relate in healthy ways to God and to their fellow human beings. This is especially the case for those courageous Christians who stick it out through the often messy process of interpersonal discord and conflict resolution, right? Think about that. This is especially true for the people that stay in the community in the midst of problems. It's not saying there won't be problems, that stay through the midst of problems. Long-term interpersonal relationships are the crucible of genuine progress in the Christian life. People who stay grow, people who leave don't grow. And this is something that I have seen consistently and constantly. I've known people that you can look and they have like a track record with churches. They're like every 2 or 3 years, maybe up to 5 years, they're in a different church. They're like, yeah, and it's always crazy, never anything they did. It's all these churches they go to, terrible churches apparently. They're great, but every 3 or 4 years, it's a new place that they're at. And all these bad stories to follow them. And what it usually shows is this person isn't willing to say, oh, man, maybe I'm hurt. Maybe that place did hurt them. But they're not willing to say, okay, let's dive into that. Let's resolve this. Let's pursue this and fix it. Let's go about this the way the Bible tells me. Hey, our value as brothers and sisters in Christ in a community is much more important than whatever this thing that's coming between us right now. It's a pattern that I see constantly. And I love this, that relationships are the crucible of genuine progress. Crucible is the thing that you melt metals down in, that you purify a metal down in. That crucible is the thing that's shaping us. And he's saying that relationships are the thing that's doing that. It's how God is using things to shape you, how he's stretching you and pulling you in different ways is relationship. This is why church is so important. And I don't just mean church attendance. It's actually a lot more than that. See, usually when people say things like, the church is the people, not the building, right? That is a true statement. But usually when they say that, they're trying to find a way to avoid attending church, avoid serving in the church, avoid giving to church, avoid having any accountability or leadership in their life. That's usually the framework that people are using when they say, the church is a people, not a building. But when we say the church isn't a building, it's a true statement. It's actually a much greater responsibility that in order to grow, we can't just show up once a week in a building. We can't just show up on Thursday nights and think, oh, I heard a message, so I'm okay. Oh, you know what? I sat in worship, and so I feel better for Sunday, and we're good. We actually have to invest in and allow our community to invest in us. We have to pour into others and allow others to pour into us. We have to be open and vulnerable with others and allow others to be open and vulnerable with us. We have to commit to being open in our lives because usually growth doesn't just come from one element. It comes from all of these circles of community. I want to show you a little video that talks about what these 4 circles of community look like.
There is a growing body of research from the social sciences that groups relationships into different categories based on group size and the depth of vulnerability. One of the most widely accepted paradigms is from Dr. Robin Dunbar of Oxford. It's called Dunbar's number. He calls our inner circle our intimates. This is 1 to 5 people max, who deeply know us as we are, our shadow and our light, and who, ideally, love us as we are. Of course, many in the West have no intimates, the fallout of Western individualism and the breakdown of the family. But hopefully, you have a few people you can bare your soul to, a spouse or best friend or mentor. The next circle is our friends, which goes up to 15 people. This is the people we do life with. We practice the one another's of the New Testament. We help each other move. We go on vacation together. We share meals. We drop off groceries when people are sick. This is our community. The next threshold is around the 150 person mark. Sociologists call this the law of 150, as 150 is about the maximum number of people we can be in relationship with, and it's the optimal group size for human organization. While there are some very large churches, this is also about the size of most local churches, and we draw on this wider social network for all sorts of things. This is our village, per se. The final circle is our tribe, the larger group we identify with and belong to. We don't know all these people personally, but this group is where we get a vision of life and a call to live with meaning and purpose. For many in the secular world, this could be a company or political party or a sports team. For us as followers of Jesus, this is the church of Jesus. And when it comes to our spiritual formation, we need relationships across all 4 circles. Jesus had relationships at every layer. He had 3 intimates, Peter, James, and John. He had the 12 and a few close friends like Mary and Martha. Then he had the group of 120 in Jerusalem. Then the larger church that he left behind. Healthy people have relationships in all 4 circles. But our deepest formation, growth, healing, and change all happens in the smaller circles. We all need what Celtic Christians called an anam cara, or a soul friend, to bear our most vulnerable burdens with. C.S. Lewis once said the essence of friendship can be summed up in the phrase, "You too?" Meaning friends come together around a shared joy like backpacking or surfing or reading fiction. In a spiritual friendship, the shared joy is Jesus. And we need a community to do life with. We were created to live deeply relational lives. And it's in the first 2 circles of our closest community that we experience deep, lasting transformation.
So part of us craves this connection he's talking about. You see that, you hear of these different circles of community, and you go like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. That's what I'm searching for. But there's also like another part of us, and maybe some of you feel this, maybe some of you don't, and it's hesitant. It's scared. It's actually terrified when you say something like this. And you say, oh, you need to go invest in community. You need to go find people and allow them into your safe innermost circle. And you go, I don't think so, man. Like, I'm good. I'm good. Just me, myself, and I. I'm good. I don't need nobody knowing my business. I'm fine. I think I'm doing okay. I made it here 3 weeks in a row. It seems pretty great to me. I think I'm doing all right. And we think like, man, I don't need these people in my life. I don't need to let somebody in. And maybe it's because we grew up in households that didn't involve a lot of love and affection in them. Or maybe it's because in those households or growing up in those environments, vulnerability was seen as weakness. Or maybe it's because you had relationships that you were open and vulnerable in, and you got hurt. You've been wounded by these relationships in the past. And so that causes you to build walls and to close up and to say, no, I don't want this to happen again. I don't want that pain that I felt. I need to build up walls because I can't let that happen again. But the fact is, those hurts and those pains are what we need at times. And sometimes those hurts and those pains are going to just continue to hurt us if we allow them to dictate what we do in our future. If we allow the hurts and the pains that we have to keep us from loving community. The well-known therapist Susie Hosh once said, our deepest wounds come from relationships, but so does our deepest healing. And I've been around and been in enough deep relationships to see that play out in my life, that I've had very deep relationships that have caused me very deep pain. But also, I've seen relationships after those pains and after those hurts bring so much healing and wisdom and recovery in the midst of it. If we shut ourselves down and we don't allow ourselves to be open in the future, we are only allowing that hurt to continue to propagate in our lives. These deeper relationships are the key to deeper growth. But in the world that we live in today, these things are not prioritized, and they're not just gonna fall out of the sky into our lap. They're not just gonna drop in front of us and be like, here's your deep connected relationship. A little while ago, we did a lesson on this exact sort of topic, building community and friendships. And we said that you need to build these things intentionally. They need to be pursued and cultivated. Because typically, as we come out of our child years and being in school or being in college or being in our first level of career, we establish our people groups, our community, based on proximity and affinity. right? If we are near something together, that's a friend group. And if we like something together, that's a friend group. And you're in school, you're around each other a bunch, so you're friends with people. And then you kind of get out of school and you stop hanging out with someone and stop just being around them all the time. And you're like, I don't really want to go hang out with that person anymore. That's okay. You might have been in that relationship because you were in proximity. That didn't mean it was a good relationship. You might both like the Capitals, and so you get together and you watch Capitals games all the time. That's fine, that's okay. But that doesn't mean it's an intentional relationship. It's just a relationship based on an affinity for something. We have to develop intentional relationships. And then when we see relationships that we want to build, we see people that we want to build relationships with, we need to cultivate those and pursue those with key characteristics of what we're trying to build in mind. So I want to talk about 3 characteristics that these type of deep relationships are. The first is depth. These relationships aren't just conversations about sports and about the weather and about all the things that are going on under the surface, but actually life situations, actually talking about like, hey, what are you going through? Hey, how are you doing? Hey, I know you're processing this with your family. Like, how's that affecting you? Hey, is this hurting you? How are you processing with this? Is this going, have you been able to improve in this? Hey, you've been struggling with this. How has that been recently? Hey, I've been struggling with this. You know, when they say, hey, how's it going? They don't just say like, it's going good, you know? It's like, oh, but actually, how's it going? Like, actually, you know, I've been dealing with this. It's pretty tough. Those are people that you need to see. If you have an affinity for that person, you see connections with that person, and you see like, oh, wow, this person has conversations of depth. They're willing to go deep. They're not just on the surface level. They're willing to be a little vulnerable and honest with me. Those are the people that you need to start pursuing in that relationship. And the people that you want to build deeper relationships with, start pursuing depth in your conversation. You can be the person that starts this. But it's not just depth. It's not just like depth can sometimes masquerade in like theological conversations. That's not what I mean. It's not just like I talk about something deep every time we talk about it. Like, hey man, what about the earth, bro? Like, it's not that, right? That's not it. But not just depth, but also vulnerability. Actual coming together over our own weakness, honestly. We can actually talk about the things that we're going through, the things that we're experiencing, showing the pieces of ourselves that we don't necessarily show to everybody. Now, that's something that's important as well. This isn't something that you do with every single person, right? You don't just give out the innermost parts of your life to everyone you meet. You need to decide and find, are these people safe? Are these people reputable? Are these people mature in their faith? Are they a person that I can actually open myself up to and talk to in these ways? But pursuing vulnerability, there's kind of like 2 sides to vulnerability in relationships. The first is telling the truth, naming our sin and our shame to each other, actually being honest about what we're doing in our life, actually being honest about things we're struggling with, right? So vulnerability isn't just like vulnerable, like, you know, on the surface level, I'm like, you know, big 10,000 feet. Yeah, man, I'm just struggling with sin in my life. That's not vulnerability. Hey, so is all of us. Like, you know, actually, hey, what am I actually struggling with? Actual vulnerability, telling the truth, naming our sin to one another for the sake of healing, confession within a community. See, we can't live without sin, but we can live without secrets. And secrets are just as destructive in our lives as sin is. So we know we're going to sin in our life, but we can choose not to have secrets, especially with those close and safe people, to say, I'm not going to hide things from these people that are close to me. Number 2 is listening. When people feel felt and heard and listened to, in an earnest way, psychologists have seen that you can't differentiate the feeling of being heard and feeling loved. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because we see a biblical definition of love. To truly love someone is to care for them in a way and to actually bear with one another. And I think that bearing with one another is more than just like solving somebody's problems or just calling out sin in their life when they have it or just pointing out their faults. It's actually listening to them, earnestly hearing them, sitting with them, bearing with one another, having empathy for where they're at in their life. When we're earnestly listening to one another, we build relationship. Have you ever been like in like a season of life where you're just like, you're hurting and there's somebody that you haven't really gone super deep with, but then you kind of trauma dump on them all of a sudden. Like you're just in the middle of nowhere. Anybody, you raise your hand, be with me. Okay. I got a couple. All right. You're just kind of like in the middle of, you're going through something and you just drop, you're like, I don't know why. And then you kind of wake up from this trance and you go like, I can't believe I just told this person all these things. I don't know this person well enough. I just dropped all of my life in this person's hands. But it's moments like that I think those moments happen and they kind of like derail and snowball. But I think sometimes it happens because you find someone who's like a real listener, who like you start to talk to them and they look at you and they're like, I'm here, like just talk to me. And that safety allows you to go like, okay, well, and then this happens and I just keep doing this and I can't, it just happens. This happens to Bethany all the time. Bethany will meet somebody for like 5 minutes and then I'm like, where were you at for the last 2 hours? She's like, well, there's a lot going on. I'm like, you just met this person. She's like, yeah. She's met people, and not even just here, just like in the street sometimes. It's just like, yeah, I know this person's life story now. It's like, wow, that's cool. But it's because she is a listener, and she has, Bethany, she'll look at you. I mean, she's scary to me, but to most other people, she's actually very, very approachable. It still surprises me every week. But no, anyway. I'm just kidding. No, she is like that. No, it's fine. I'm sorry. She's threatening me in the back. No, she is like that. She's a listener. And so I think we sometimes forget that part of this process of being biblical, deep friends is truly listening, truly earnestly desiring to know what our friend is going through so we can help them move into the next step. So we can help them process where they're at and be with them through it. Sometimes our call to love each other doesn't mean calling each other's out of our faults in the moment. Sometimes the love God is calling us to do is to listen. That is a form and an act of love. This is how our deep friendships lead us to real healing from sin and shame. The number 3 is commitment to transformation. When monks join monasteries, they have to take bunches of vows and oaths, right? And one of those oaths is called, let's see if I get this right, conversatio morum. I think I said that right. Conversatio morum. And this means conversion of life. It's a vow and a commitment to never stop growing. That their whole life will be dedicated to looking inwardly and deciding to continually pursue growth. Many people reach certain levels of spiritual formation, certain levels of spiritual maturity, and then they coast, they plateau. They say, I'm good, that's good enough. And usually it's like, I'm not like a pastor, I'm not a missionary, I'm not leading a church, I'm not in leadership, I'm good. And it's like, that's not a good standard. The calling to like be a pastor, for instance, isn't actually the calling to live your life any differently. It actually just says you'll be held to a higher standard. It says not many of you should become teachers because you'll be held to a higher account. But none of the things it tells you to do are any different. But we will write it off that way. We'll be like, well, I'm not like, look, I can still get drunk every now and then. I'm not like a pastor or anything. It's like, oh, is that actually, oh, I can still, yeah, I know. Look, I know I'm having sex and I'm not married, but I'm working on it. It's like, I'm not really there. It's fine. I'm good. I'm reading my Bible. You're like, I don't think that's how it works. We get to these points where we go, this is good enough for me. But what are we really writing off for ourselves? We're actually saying like, hey, God wants so much more for me, not from me, but for me. He wants so much more for me, but I'm content down here. I'm content not reaching the potential that God put in me. I'm content not living up to a full peace in Jesus because I want these desires. I want these earthly passions. I want these things I'm not willing to give up. And so I'm going to cut off my spiritual growth. And that's what we do. I've spent my life doing it many different times, many different ways. Those are moments where we realize this is a trick from the devil. It's a trick to say, oh, you're good. You're good enough. Look at you. Look at this other person. You're much better than them. I've had thoughts like that and let them skate right by in my mind. What is that? That's not from God. I'll tell you that right away. It's a trick. The way of Jesus is to always be looking for how you can grow to be a little more like Jesus. It doesn't mean you need to stop doing everything you're doing all at once. It doesn't mean you need to fix all the bad stuff that's in your life and become a monk and stop, go live in the woods because you can't stop sinning. Like, that's not what I'm saying. We all can't stop sinning. We all got problems, all right? But it's to say, I just want to take the next step and God will help you. And I just want to take the next step after that and God will help you. And it's realizing that there's always going to be a next step. And that's not a burden. It's a gift. The gift is that Jesus doesn't say, hey, you're following me, so now you got to fix all this right now. Here's your time limit. Bang. Fix it. That's not what Jesus does. He is a patient, loving Father and a patient teacher. He's saying, I want to teach you. And you probably can't handle all these things that you're doing wrong. You don't even know, right? You don't know, I'm going to fix your drinking because you don't know you're also prideful. But I'm not even going to bring up the pride because we're going to fix this other stuff first. And that's good. That's a gift. It's a gift that he's saying, hey, just let's work on this. And I'm going to help you. And I'm going to put people around you to help you. And I'm going to put people in your life to support you. And then we're going to fix it. And then God's going to go, great, that's awesome. So proud of you. Now let's work on this other thing. And that's good. That's a gift. He's patient. He's loving. He wants us to commit to transformation, to make a commitment to say, I will continue to be formed by Jesus. It might only be one step at a time, but I'm going to let him form me. And as we come together, we need to surround ourselves with people who are committed to transformation, who can call those things out in us, who can call the lack of commitment out in us. When we do need correction or we can't see our own way, we've got blinders on or blind spots, we all have them. You need people in your life that in those moments they can say, hey, this isn't good for you. Hey, this isn't what you're committed to. Hey, this isn't the life that you want to live. You have much better that God has for you. Live life that way. Spiritual friendships don't work unless everyone in the friendship is fully committed to the process of formation. If you're in this what you think is a Christ-centered friendship, but only one of the people in this friendship is actually committed to being formed, then what's going to happen is somebody's going to get to a point where the other person goes, man, you're good. But that's not true. And that's not helpful for us. We have to look for people, those safe people that we can be honest and we can be vulnerable with, but that are also going to call us to better. And then it's a two-way street. They're going to say, I'm calling you to better so that you call me to better. I'm calling you out in things not because I'm trying to find the log in your eye or the speck in your eye with the log in mine. I'm not calling you out in things because I want to point my finger and say, haha, see what you're messing up? You need me in your life because I'm your spiritual friend. You need me in your life because I'm the one showing you how to fix stuff. That's not what a spiritual friend is. The spiritual friend is someone who comes alongside you and says, hey, I love you. This isn't good for you. And hey, I love you and I'm struggling too. And hey, will you help me? Hey, I've been honest with you and this is where I'm at and I need help. And then the recourse of that is this trust, this bond, this closeness that you can listen and support one another. And then when those times come on the flip side, It goes both ways. I would actually challenge you, if there's people in your life right now that you can think of that you go, that's my safe person. That's the person, maybe I'm still cultivating those friendships. Maybe I'm still building closeness in some of those levels, right? You're still figuring out if that person is safe to put there in that innermost circle, and that's okay. But if you start finding those people, you go, that's my safe person. That's a person that I know is in my innermost circle. They're in an intimate relationship with me, and I know I can trust them. If you have those people in your life, go to them and tell them that they have the ability to speak into your life. Actually verbalize that to them, because I can tell you, as someone who's had to have conversations with friends about like, hey man, I don't think this is good for you, those are scary. And they don't feel good, and they're terrible conversations because you love this person so much, but you also are terrified about what they might react to you trying to help them. And you want it to come in love. And so the best thing that you could do is to go to those people and say, those people that are close to you, and say, hey, I just want you to know, no matter what happens in my life, like, you have a voice in my life. If something's going on, I expect and want you to call it out at me. Not like with a hammer, right? Don't like throw like a Bible across the thing with like, bookmarked to a page that says, stop sinning. It's the Michael Jordan meme, right? Just stop it. It's not that. Just stop it. Not that, yeah. Get some help. That's not what we want. But what we do want is we want someone who can say, hey, if I'm in that moment, try to be as loving as you can, but I need you to call it out in me. And I'm giving you that pass now, and I'm going to give you that pass, and I'm going to put in myself an expectation that if you end up having to cash that check, if you end up having to cash it in and saying, hey, you're messing stuff up, then I'm going to use this as a reminder to say, all right, I got to check my heart. I told you could do this, so I better look seriously at what's going on. Think about that. Think about the people that are in those places in your lives. Spiritual friendships don't work unless everyone is fully committed to the process of formation. So to kind of wrap up, spiritual friendships are built with depth, with vulnerability, and with commitment to transformation. It is possible to be in a community like this, a community like FCF, a community like young adults, and never actually let anyone in. Just because you're showing up on Thursdays, just because you're showing up on Sundays, just because you're showing up on another Bible study night, doesn't mean you're letting people into your life. In fact, it's a great way to hide. It's a really good way to hide. I've done it for years, where I was like, yeah, I'm in church all the time. I don't have any problems. I'm good, great. I never let anybody in. Sometimes you get to the point where I can't let somebody in now because I'm leading or I'm serving. Can't let somebody in now. What would they think? I go to church all the time. That's a lie. It's a trick. Don't listen to it. You have to let people in. You have to begin to cultivate relationships, finding the people who are safe, who listen, who are honest, who are committed to transformation, and begin to let yourself be more and more vulnerable with those people. Doesn't mean you don't trauma dump on them like we said all at once, right? That's not the goal. But you find those people and you become more and more open with them. That's how friendships build. And almost all of our formation occurs within the context of relationship. I wanted to ask before I move on, before we kind of close out, just out of curiosity, because I know there's some people that are still new in our community and new and growing, but if you didn't have much of a community coming into young adults, but have found healing community here, could you put your hand up? Wow. I should have known that was going to make me cry. I'm dumb. Yeah. That is super special. Don't let that sneak by. And I'm not just saying that so we pat ourselves on the back, right? That is what Christ's community does. That is what a community of Christ is supposed to do. And so when you come into a community and you go, I don't know, and maybe you're here and you're still trying to find it. Maybe you're here and you still don't know and you still haven't found those pieces. Give it time. give it an opportunity to grow. Give it an opportunity to let people in, because the devil wants more than anything for you to not be someone that's about to raise their hand when I ask that question. The devil wants you to go, that's not my place, I'm going to leave. The devil wants you to go, no, I'm just more of a loner. I'm just more of someone, I'm more on myself. I need to do my own thing. That's what he wants. But Jesus wants you to find healing. Jesus wants you to find people that love you and care about you and can help lead on a road of healing. I shouldn't have done that. I was like, I almost lost it all right there. That was close. All right. To close out, our practice this week is do life in community. Well, congratulations. You're doing pretty good. You're here, right? Nailed it. Give yourselves a hand. Yeah. You're crushing it. You're doing it, but it's just a reminder, this isn't the only thing. And neither is church on Sunday. It's everything. It's all together. It's allowing people into your life and allowing people into deeper, more vulnerable, honest, and safe friendships that will help guide you on your spiritual journey. These are your steps for identifying this. You identify your community. You begin to meet regularly. You're doing it. Love it. You're here. We're here next Thursday. Testimony night. It's great. We're going to get to know our community even a little bit more. And following up as you continue. You don't just stop with meeting regularly. This is where a lot of times we stop. We say, yep, I go to FCF church, or I go to FCF young adults. And you're like, that's my community. But is it really? Have you actually taken farther steps? Have you decided to find people to read together? Read a book. It doesn't even have to be a Christian book. Have you just started a book club? Have you just yeah, I know. Shout out Libby. Libby's got a ladies book club. If you're interested, join her book club. I don't know if it's an open invite, but I definitely just made it that. So sorry, Libby. Go read a book together. Take a class. If you're interested in a topic, go find somebody else that's interested in that topic. Listen in small groups. Listen more than you talk. When you're in a small group, listen for when people talk and they say stuff and you go, man, I really like that too. Or wow, that's really interesting. I wonder if that person would talk about that with me. Let me go talk with them. I wonder if they would go to a class like this. I wonder if they go to a Christian concert with me. I wonder if I have a group me. Let's post it in a group me if I want to go do this thing. Share a meal and pray for one another. There's so much power in these things. We do prayer nights here. We do testimony nights and all of those things. It's great. Testimony night next week is going to be amazing. But it's going to be, it's a lot of times it's a celebration of what God is doing in our lives. But there's a very intentional purpose. I'll let you guys a little in behind the scenes. It's not just to celebrate in what God has done in our lives. When we leave testimony night, every single time, everybody walks out of this room and we go man, those 4 or 5 people that went up and gave their testimonies, I feel like I know them. Maybe maybe I've never spoke a word to them beforehand, but now I know them. I know their story. They were vulnerable. They were honest. And I know something about them. And it builds this connection that's so powerful. It's one of the reasons why I will never stop doing it. It's the reason we do it as consistently as we can, because these are the things that are actually growing us together. It's the one-on-one connections. It's the connections with each other that are allowing us to do life together, to actually do life in community, not just in the small group, but actually out in life together. In closing, I hope that this study, these past 8 weeks, have been helpful for you. And please let your small group leader know if you've enjoyed it and if there's been specific sessions that have spoken to you or the format. We've done it a little differently throughout the weeks. And also, can we give a hand up to Sam and Lexi also for teaching? This is the first time that we've been able to do this kind of like this, where we've taken material and we've consistently through a whole series taught it, and we would not have been able to do that if it was just me. So thank you so much to them for teaching, and we're going to do more stuff like this. So very exciting, but I really hope that this has been helpful for you. And if it is, and if this is new, and even maybe if it's just been this week that you're like, wow, I really connected with, and you want to check out other stuff, please do. But most of all, I just want us to remember that there's Thursdays and Thursdays and Thursdays. And it's easy to in one Thursday we're going to make a change, and maybe we slip up, maybe we make mistakes, maybe we get things in place. But the biggest thing that we need to remember is that this whole process, what this was talking about, this was a kind of a primer on spiritual formation is what they call it. It's just to kind of start us, to start the engine. And that means that this is just the start. This is just the path. This whole process of becoming a Christian, becoming a follower of Christ, a disciple of Christ, and becoming like Jesus, to do this, to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, and to do as he did. That whole process, that is a lifelong process. And that's not a daunting thing, it's a good thing. It's a gift. It's a gift that Jesus says, I'm so good and so loving and so great that you can pursue me your whole life until you get to come be with me. That's the joy of being a Christian, that you get to follow me, and every day I will make new, and every day I will help you be a little better. You just have to look forward and say, what is the next right step towards Jesus? Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for us being able to come together, to study your word, Lord, to be here in this community. Lord, I thank you for what you're building in community, for what you're growing in us, Lord. I pray that you will allow us to be open and honest in our small groups as we finish our final small group of this series, Lord, and that you will just continue on what you were doing through this series, Lord. You will continue on what you started in small groups through the next coming weeks, the next year, Lord, that all of the connections and the trust and the community that's being made in people's hearts and minds every night in small group, Lord, that you will let that reverberate through their lives and through the lives of others. You'll let people connect and use that as an opportunity to serve you and to serve others, Lord. I pray that you let us all have a great evening, a great opportunity to talk and to grow closer to you. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.